Come on, Gail. You got this. Let's go. Robert.
Robert.
Robert. That is iconic.
Right?
They trying to kill me.
Kill me, man.
Like, that shit may run with them 14-year-old little girls. She said, I am 62, Auntie.
She said, do you know who the fuck I am? I am Gail the King.
The King. Best friends with the Oprah.
The Oprah. So, bitch, sit your ass down.
Introducing AunTeas Vodka Smoothie. Damn! Introducing AunTeas Vodka Gummy Penguin.
This might have to be a blooper reel.
Smoothie and Gummy Penguin. I mean, it's right. I'm looking at it. It's right here. And it's just too damn long and it's making me sweat. Okay, I'm going to try to get through this. Okay. AunTeas Vodka Smoothie and Vodka Gummy Penguin. Okay. Mm-hmm. Introducing AunTeas Vodka Smoothie and...
Anka, I'm sorry.
What did I say? Did I say
Anka? You said Anka. You went German on us, bitch. She started speaking a whole nother language.
AunTeas Vodka Smoothie.
I'm so sorry, baby, but you...
Oh my God, that was great.
Introducing AunTeas Vodka. Introducing AunTeas Vodka. I think it's hard because it's like it's introducing AunTeas Vodka Smoothie and Vodka Gummy Penguin. Yes. That's a whole lot to say.
It
wouldn't be so bad. It would be. Look, it wouldn't be so bad if like I didn't have to look at the camera. That's right. The killer part about it. All right.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Sorry, I'm in tears.
He said it so confidently.
Sergey, and he just kept going. I was like, bitch, you better do that.
We was rooting your ass off. We was like, yes, bitch. You better alter that thing. I would die watching this back.
I know you is, bitch. I know you is.
Okay.
Hi, this is Alia.
And this is Nadia. We're both from the Queer Arabs podcast.
Hi, AunTeas. What's brewing?
Introducing AunTeas Vodka Smoothie and Vodka Gummy Penguin.
Ask your aunties, bothered and depressed.
And black is still king. So get your cups ready for MinoriTea Report. Well, hello.
Hi.
Hey,
community.
How y'all doing?
Doing solidly
weird, but, you know,
yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Really happy to be here.
And community, once again, we're surprising you. Another guest this week, and not even guest, plural. 2.
Whoa.
2 extra guests.
Double trouble.
We have Alia and Nadia from the Queer Arabs podcast with us this week.
Yes.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, y'all.
Thank you so much for having us. This is fun.
Absolutely. And what are your auntie names?
I am Vodka Gummy Penguins, a la the Trader Joe vodka, or Trader Joe Gummy Penguins, sometimes Trader Joe vodka, but once you soak them together, they're a good combo.
Deliciousness.
Yeah. A quarantine favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try that.
Do you be standing in those long Trader Joe lines?
She has.
I have.
Okay, so what's the longest? Oh, what? Okay, what's the longest you've had to wait in those lines? Because the lines down the street by my house are like 2 blocks long. And I said,
okay, I think I've waited like 20 minutes. It's not that bad. It hasn't been that bad because I try to like go in the middle of the day, kind of like take a break from work and just Yeah,
I went on a Saturday morning and it was probably a good half hour. And I was like, nope, never again. And I was doing it because my husband had been recently diagnosed with diabetes. And I don't know if he wants me to put that out there, but
I was going to say, did you guys talk about that?
Anyway.
Get that out.
But anyway, like Trader Joe has like a lot of just a wider variety of just substitutes of like sugars and things and like that. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a salad. I'm gonna go, help my hubby. I'll go to Trader Joe's this Saturday morning. Bitch, not again.
Oh, no. Saturday morning. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go when he needs to go.
Yeah.
So
I've only gone when it's like getting a big.
Yeah, she does like massive.
Yeah. Hauls. Get a bunch of stuff at once. Yeah. But
you're in there for like an hour.
See, I'm in Manhattan, and so I usually do a Trader Joe's run once a month. And I have to go first thing in the morning when they open, because in New York, in Manhattan.
Yeah, it's always crazy. It's even if it
is crazy, but they don't restock. So, I mean, they do restock, but like they run out of a lot of stuff towards the middle of the day, and it's hard to catch up on like you could be there for like 5 things, and then one of the things that you need, they're completely out of because they've just been, their stock has been depleted. So I go first thing in the morning. The longest I've waited was about an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, girl,
But that was like, I think end of April, beginning of May, right? Yeah. So that was in the thick of things.
The height of it, yeah.
Now it's usually about 20 to 30 minutes on the regular. And it's about 2.5 blocks long by the time I get there.
Yeah, the line was about like an hour, 45-minute wait around that same time over here. And I said, you got the wrong one.
Right.
Like,
you got the wrong bitch.
Absolutely not. It's
wrong human.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I have to commend Trader Joe's, because they, and if you want to plug and, sponsor us.
Come on, Trader Joe's.
But no, like they've done such a great job from the beginning of the pandemic all the way through current state in terms of, cleaning the stores, making sure people have masks. They have bouncers, at least here in Manhattan. So you can't even enter unless you have, at least you have to have a mask in order to enter. They have certain aisles that are narrower, and so you can only go one way down those aisles. So they have like little markers. And if you try to go the other way, the bouncers in the store, they will say, no, you can't. You have to go all the way around and
go start throwing people out.
So but you know what? But you appreciate it because, especially again, here in Manhattan, where the pandemic is live and kicking, and we were the epicenter of like all eyes on us, you appreciate that amount of caution, because you don't want to be one of those ones catching it and being in the ICU.
It's like, where you get it at? Oh, Trader Joe's, girl. I was in
because I walked the wrong way down an aisle. So it's like, hey, walk a little extra, like one further aisle, or die. Take your pick.
But like you might die.
You're like, you paid how much for your COVID? Oh, okay. I got the bougie COVID this time.
I remember before we even knew what the rules were, Adam and I were shopping. My partner and I were shopping, and he was at one end of the aisle, and I was at the beginning end of the aisle. We shop. We have the same grocery list, but he gets his stuff, I get my stuff. So we just split up and divide and conquer.
Yeah.
He was at the end of the aisle, and he was like trying to get my attention. And usually when I go to Trader Joe's, that's when I listen to podcasts, because I know I got at least a half an hour, waiting in this line, and I'm going to be shopping. So, so I'm like listening to whatever podcast I was listening to that week, wasn't really paying attention. My phone was in my pocket. He's blowing me up or whatever. And finally I looked at my phone. He goes, "They won't let me up. I can't. Can you please grab the chicken before you come down that aisle?"
Oh my God.
The bouncer kicked him off the chicken aisle.
He was like, they wouldn't let me go back. I was like, oh, well.
That's funny. Well, then so we got vodka gummy penguins, which I need to try these gummy penguins from Trader Joe. And then what's going to be the other name?
Mine is a vodka smoothie, because one day Nadia was like, "Oh, I kind of want a vodka shot."
Okay, wait. So contextualize. I had an online performance, which is a weird thing, and it's really anticlimactic afterwards. So I was like, I texted some people. I'm like, I feel like we should just get drunk over Zoom, so this just feels complete. So I was like, I'm gonna get some vodka, but she was like, no, I'm gonna make a mix.
I was like, no, I got this. I'm gonna mix some frozen mango in there. And Nadia was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I thought she was just gonna just put a little mango in.
No, but then then I emptied the thing of frozen mangoes, and there were like 2 little squares, and I was like, that's not enough fruit. And so I was like, oh, we have like strawberries or raspberries. It's fine. I'll just dump more in there.
Well. Oh wait, I forgot the part where we like struggled to close the blender.
Yeah, we couldn't. Yeah,
oh
we
God.
spent
so
like
much
5
fruit
that is
that
the
you couldn't
worst.
close the blender?
No,
we were just so bad at closing.
There was like a weird blender alignment issue, and we were just not closing it. It was this whole thing where Nadia was just like, I just wanted a shot, and like this.
But the result was like a whole ass smoothie. It was like Jamba Juice with a little bit of vodka in it. I'm like, this is really nice, but not really what I was looking for.
Like I still
this
see
is
that
a whole Lucy Ethel episode. I can see it right now.
Yeah. And so then Nadia's like, I'm gonna save this one for later and put it in the freezer, and just like I'm pouring myself a shot.
So you just got
she didn't even have the smoothie. She didn't even have the smoothie.
I had a little bit of it, and then I did have it later. It was still good after.
So you just gotta stick with your guns from the get-go. Be like, you know what? I wanted a shot from the get-go.
Yeah, and I had to make it this whole thing, and so I feel like I deserve the name vodka smoothie after
after all of that.
Like, that's my safe word going forward.
Right. Vodka smoothie.
Vodka smoothie.
Yeah.
Vodka smoothie. Too smooth vodka.
Well, you know I'm anti-vodka, so I'm partial to vodka, so I'm here for these vodka names. And before we get too far, community, you know we're on YouTube now, so please subscribe, hit the bell button, the like button, all that good stuff. Help us out with the algorithm. And yeah, that's it. You know, good old YouTube. So, but the Queer Arabs podcast. So, like, I've started to listen to the podcast, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I thoroughly enjoyed the last episode because it was an episode where you had, I forget her name. What was her name?
Anuma.
And she was a black Arab, a black Muslim Arab, and like that's just part of even just being black that you kind of almost forget in a way that like, hold on, even in the Muslim world and things like that, there are black Arabs. There's this, the community is so vast that like we got to look out for every part of us and tell those stories. So I thoroughly enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, she's awesome. And like those listening, she has a page called Black Arabs Collective. You should like totally check it out. It just started and it's going to be building and including a bunch of different guests. And yeah, basically.
She was from what, the UAE, and she kind of goes back and forth?
She's from Dubai, or she's currently in Dubai.
Okay.
Actually,
yeah, and she grew up there.
She grew up there, yeah.
So yeah, it was a really good conversation. Yeah, like we've been having some conversation about how there's like anti-blackness in Arab spaces.
Like anti-blackness is
like
global, and that includes Arab culture. But then it's also like it just like. Some people, you know, when you bring that up, especially in, I think Arab communities, there's this idea that like the race and racism you're talking about is an American construct, which it's a lie. I mean, there's truth to it in that like the particular versions of race and racism are specific to places, but that doesn't mean there isn't racism other places. It just looks a little different, right? And I think that's kind of used to just like sweep across all like racial all racism in the Solana region or whatever region we're talking about. But I think there's finally kind of been an acknowledgement like, no, you can't be in solidarity with like the BLM movement in the US if you're not like dealing with the racism in your own society. So basically her collective is coming out of that like growing interest in addressing that, and she's just also a really cool person doing some really cool creative projects. And
she was gorgeous too. Like I saw the IG picture, I was like, oh,
she is gorgeous. Yeah.
Super gorgeous.
And her fashion sense is just
follow her personal too. Yeah.
But getting back to you guys and your podcast, tell us a little bit about what made you decide to start your own podcast, and how did you land on the name, you know, Queer Arabs Podcast? It seems so kind of like on the nose, but tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So in March.
So I didn't start it, so you can do this. Yeah.
So Nadia came in a little bit later. So it was March 2018, and I had been thinking about like, oh, there's not anything on iTunes or anything that like involves queerness and Arab And I just wasn't finding anything with that intersection. And so I was like, I wonder how you make a podcast. And I was like, I'm going to Google this and maybe give it a shot. And of course, I think, you know, it's a natural feeling to be like, I'm not qualified to do this. Why am I the person doing this? But so anyway, at first I had a lot of self-doubt. I wasn't sure how it would go. I like another co-host and I put out a few episodes and I felt kind of mediocre about them because we didn't have good equipment. We didn't know what to talk about and we didn't have guests on yet. So like, you know, at first it was just the two of us kind of talking about things that we had researched beforehand and it felt really scripted, you know? So it was just,
we know.
Yeah.
We've been there.
We got one episode that the community don't know about because it's,
it's in the vault.
We know how that goes.
Yeah.
We know how that goes. Like I will never listen to those episodes again myself. And then, yeah, and so the Queer Arabs, it's called that. At first I wanted to call it this funny rainbow hummus, just because I was trying to think, I was like, I just wanted to have something really cute and creative. And
but no, like fuck cutesy names. We want people to Google us.
Exactly. And so like we don't need that. And the whole point is to start something that we weren't seeing. And we weren't seeing literally Queer Arab podcasts. So we were like, maybe we should name it the thing that it is. Since we're trying to like.
Yeah, I'm kind of kidding on the Google thing, but also kind of not. Because like, honestly, like this started by you like searching Queer Arabs podcast, not finding it.
Totally.
Like before, I think like a month before you existed, I like also looked up like queer. I was also like searching the same thing. And it's weird because it wasn't that long ago. It was like 2 and something years ago, but it feels like the landscape with that whole representation is just like totally different. Like now if you Google like Queer Arabs, a bunch of stuff at the time, like there wasn't really anything there. And I think like a bunch of people who have been on this podcast have been like, I used to just Google Queer Arabs all the time and not find anything. And then I found this. So, you know, it does the job. Yeah.
Right.
And I
so
think
the name makes sense. Yeah.
And I think at least in our experience, and I'm sure you guys probably have a similar one, is you start to recognize that where there wasn't a lot of voices, now there's starting to be, you know, more voices. But the beautiful part of it is we all have our unique perspectives. And so even though formats may be similar or they may be completely different, there is room for everyone. And so it's really awesome that you guys found a spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciate you saying that because I think sometimes there's this notion of like, oh, there's already this one representative of XYZ. Okay, that spot's filled. It would be redundant to add more to that. And it's like, no, that's not how it works.
Of course, there could be multiple perspectives. I think also like the whole function of the podcast has just changed along with that kind of landscape change. Like it used to be like, and to be fair, like I know you hate those initial episodes, but I was like, I listened to them and I really liked them because it was like, wow, this is stuff that I relate to that I haven't really heard people talk about to this length before.
You
so
find
like,
that you kind of criticize yourself a little harder than even like the people listening to it. A lot of times the people that listen, they're just like, finally something I could like listen to that I've been through and I can relate to, you know. And meanwhile, we're listening to it like, oh shit, that was horrible.
Why don't I have any intonation in my voice at all?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, do I really sound like that?
Yeah, totally. But also, I guess it started out with like, you're like, oh, we want to create representation, whatever that means. And now it's a little different. It's less about like the people who are hosting this podcast are the representation and more like it's a platform to like make connections across like different aspects of this community, which are like so vast and starting to connect to each other like across the region, across the diaspora, across everywhere. And it's more of, I think I see it more of like a connecting and networking platform than like a piece of representation in itself or whatever that means.
Like a few people are going to talk at you format. It's more like it's very much a collaborative project.
I'm glad you brought that up though, about there being like space for everyone, because I think that is an easy trap to fall into, because it's basically like internalizing the tokenism that other people have kind of like put on us. Like there can only be one.
There can be only one.
Yeah.
And then you internalize that, and you see someone who has like a slightly similar identity to you, and then you think like, you're my competition because there can only be one.
Part.
Yeah.
That part. Yeah. The competition part. Yeah.
Like,
it's crazy.
We're different humans.
Right. You know, or just like when you realize you're like, why are we fighting against each other? Like,
why
we aren't the problem.
Right.
Like, exactly.
And meanwhile, we've seen like the same white show 1,000 million times.
Right?
Nobody is saying anything about that.
No one says shit about that.
So it's just like, and I think sometimes we almost put that pressure upon ourselves. You'd be like, oh, I'm finally, quote unquote, here. I can't let anyone else know. I'm like, lift these windows, let these doors open, because I want to see us everywhere, you know, in the POC community. Like, whether you're Black, whether you're Arab, whether you're Asian, let's get everybody in here, because there's so many stories out there that have not been told, that people have just died off, that it's just like, no, like, that's so sad to me that like there's so many stories and tales out there that we will never know existed because they didn't have the avenue and platform to do so. And that's what I love about the podcast, is because literally there's no barrier. Like, get you a microphone, even if it's just your phone and yourself, talk it out, and you're gonna find someone that wants to listen and relate to it, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's the part I like about POC, the POC part too, is because I feel like right now, like at least in the last few years, it's been a push to like divide the POC people, like Blacks here, Latinos there, Arabs there, Native Americans there, like, and the thing is, we're all marginalized, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves like kind of compete against each other, and it's like, and they just sitting over there, they the non-POCs drinking lemonade, you know, like, oh, we're good, you know, they're doing all the work for us, they taking each other out while we don't have to do anything. And I really feel like if, you know, we all just, you know, take the time to really emphasize on the fact that POC means all of us, you know, like, it's just gonna change, and it's gonna change for the better for all of us. But, you know, like, but we really have to make sure that we're looking out for not just ourselves, but for each other, you know. So
keeping the connections are important. And that's
which isn't to like gloss over and be like everyone's experience is the same, but it's just like it's like exactly like solidarity. Like, we need to support each other, because otherwise white people are
that's one of the reasons.
Take over.
White people are they'll just continue to white people.
The reason why Pinky in the Brain were white mouses.
That was one of the reasons why we really wanted to be intentional about you know, having folks like you guys on, because originally, even our first year, I think we had maybe one guest. Was it one guest our whole first year? And we do podcasts every single week. So 56 episodes. But
52.
Oh
yeah, 52 weeks.
Shut up, Smithy. Smithy.
Well, we got a couple extra ones in there.
We did have a couple extras,
but that wasn't why I said 56. I just couldn't count. But I digress. I say all that to say that we went into this year, the second year of our podcast, with the purposeful intention to highlight and other voices that aren't, you know, Black, you know, Black men who are gay in our persuasion and interracial relationships, which all the three of us, we share. But we found that when we talk about social issues, we can only really talk about it or engage in that conversation from our unique perspectives. And, you know, by having folks like you guys on, you know, it allows us to have much richer dialogue and to hear other perspectives. Not that you represent the totality of your communities, but you offer a different perspective than we have. And I think it's great to be able to leverage our platform to connect the dots. And for a lot of our listeners, we're the first podcast that they started listening to, and they ask us for other recommendations. And by bringing folks like you guys on, we're able to share the love. So we really appreciate you guys joining us in this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us on.
Thank you. And I think that's the beautiful thing about storytelling. It's like everyone's story is unique, but there's always going to be someone to relate to it and be like, wow, I'm hearing like someone who gets it, or or not, or like, oh, I'm learning something new. Either way.
Yeah, you don't have to exactly. You don't have to 100% relate to something to have a reason to listen to it. Yeah.
I also love that you guys do episodes in English and Arabic.
Same here.
Yeah, we want to do more Arabic episodes in the future. The person who normally hosts the Arabic episodes has just not had the time to do it lately. But I think that's so important. It's really important to the reach, because our reach is pretty international, and that includes like people who like don't speak English, or maybe English isn't their primary language, and there's just there's, again, like, the landscape is changing. There's like an increasing amount of like queer content in Arabic, but like still, I think especially when this started out, there just wasn't a lot that was accessible there. Yeah,
and honestly, there's something like political and powerful about like talking about queer issues in Arabic. So that's like
I'm really trying to like learn how to do that. So I'm like my Arabic isn't good enough that I feel comfortable hosting the podcast, not just like on overall. I think, well, okay, part of it is like different dialects, because I struggle to like, I think more than someone else who grew up in the Middle East, who's maybe exposed to like a wider variety of dialects. I like really struggle to talk to people when it's not like Levantine dialect. But apart from that, it's like I don't necessarily have vocabulary about particular issues we'd be talking about. Like I don't necessarily know how to talk about like gender and sexuality and like racism, and like that's not something that was taught to me. So I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna like stumble through figuring this out, and like, because on at some point I want to be able to use this language to talk about things that are actually important in my life in general, instead of just kind of like siloing it off. Like, I use this for these things only.
I love that.
And it's cool that you're like doing something that you love and you're learning at the same time too. You know, like, and you're finding that, you know, like how to be more comfortable within your true self by doing both the podcasts at the same time. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
A question for you too, and this question comes from my husband, because he's half Lebanese. So when I was telling him who was going to be on this week, he was like, "How old are they?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe late 20s. I don't know." But he was like, "I have a question for them," because he's like, he just, for him growing up being half Lebanese and half Greek, he just knew how hard it was for him to come out in that kind of culture, and he's just like, from what you're telling me, they're like talking to people internationally and everything from that region. And he's like, how is it for them today? Because he's 15 years older than I am. So like, and I'm 36. So, you know, so for his generation compared to like our generation and things like that, he's like, how is it today for them to come out, especially in a culture where they really don't condone the LGBTQIA, you know, community? And he's like, especially if they're talking to people from Lebanon and Jordan and this and that. And so that was his specific question to me to ask you guys, just to see like your experience. And then also, has it gotten better? Is it easier? Is it not? Do they have to hide that they're on this podcast with you all and things like that?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, okay, wait. I feel like there's a bunch of points we want to touch on in that. Let's just start with our ages.
Yeah.
Let's just start there.
I'm 35.
Oh, girl,
what? I was about to say, okay. I clocked 26. Good for you, girl. I clocked 26. Okay, bam.
Thank you.
I'm 25.
Yes. Okay, see, I'm 23, 25.
Okay.
So 35, 25. Yeah.
And for, I guess, more personal context, I am Lebanese American, and I mostly grew up in North Carolina.
And I grew up in the upper Midwest, like in various states, and I am half Saudi.
Okay.
And
Midwest, and we're all Midwesterners.
Yeah, we're Midwest too.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I was in Minnesota.
Oh, okay. That's where I mostly grew up.
Yeah, and I guess to answer your question, like, how have things changed? I mean, like, I think they have and they haven't. I guess to like answer his question specifically, I think, okay. So in some ways, things in Lebanon regarding like having a queer community presence, I think has like changed tremendously in like the past 10 years, even like the past 5 years, even like the past 2 years is so much different than what was there before. Not to like I think sometimes that gets overhyped. There's certain just like bits and pieces that have like made it into international media, which just like overhyped certain things. Like, oh, they had this event, so that means like everything is fine. It's like, no,
gay liberation.
Things, right. And it's like, no, in some ways, like the access to queer community is sometimes like really class restricted and really like restricted to Beirut. And yeah, and I think there's been some things where like a court ruling was publicized, like, oh, this court ruling legalized gay sex, but it's like, no, that's not how court rulings work there. It just means that judge ruled on that one particular person that they weren't so I guess like things have changed a lot. Things have also not changed a lot. It also depends on the country. Like Egypt has just gotten so much worse in the past 10 years. But I think also like the coming out point is a point we kind of try to bring like a little more nuance to. Like part of the idea that this is a podcast is that like, one, not everyone's faces and full names have to be on it. Like a lot of people, we don't think that like coming out, whatever that means, 100% in all contexts, is like a requirement for having any kind of queer visibility or queer community. A lot of people are like doing a bunch of really great organizing without being out in a lot of contexts of their lives, or without being public in a lot of contexts. And yeah, that's been a really important aspect of being able to have like an international presence on the podcast, and also just like an international kind of listenership. It's like, this is a thing where you don't necessarily have to be entirely visible to participate. And we're also not like about pressuring anyone to be more visible than they want to be. Yeah. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. I think you really covered that point well about like the notion of coming out. And I guess like coming out can mean different things to different people. Like it can mean like telling a few family members, or like publicly being visible on social media or whatever. So I guess like my personal experience, like on my Saudi side, I just have told a few family members, and it's always, I don't know how much better things have gotten there, honestly. Like you get the like, oh, okay, it's fine with me, but don't tell anyone else. Like no one else in the family can know. And so there's still not the willingness to like publicly be an ally, but it's like, okay, everything needs to be kept under wraps. And I don't know if like the older generations even had that option to tell close family members. I don't know, how common that was.
And it sounds at least from him, like it took a long while. And honestly, I think almost to a point, because like I even met one of his uncles a few years ago before he passed, and he was like maybe 90 something. And it almost kind of felt like one of those things still. It was kind of those don't ask, don't tell moments,
Yeah.
And I respected that. It's like, I understand it, you know? But I think for him, it was just at first so hard, because it was he's just like, we just don't do that, and you just don't talk about it. You're not visible and this and that.
Gotcha.
And he's like, and then now you're on a podcast this week with, two people that are like out and talking about it. And I was like, and they have like international guests. And he's like, really? He's like, and so for him, he was just like, wow.
Yeah.
His perspective was like, there must be some sort of change, because I don't feel like he would have felt comfortable if like a podcast was when he was younger, being on a podcast. And like you said, like there's like obviously layers and things of quote unquote coming out or being visible and things like that. But from his sense, he was just like, just culturally, that's huge.
Yeah. And I mean, like the fact that we don't, like Nadia said, we don't like have our faces showing on our social media pages usually, and we,
I mean, at this point we kind of
a little
bit. I think we've all kind of had to make different like gradient decisions as we're going through with
but
this.
It's not very like, it's not like the focus.
That's not
right. Yeah. And I think also, like you mentioned, the don't ask, don't tell, and I think that's also just such a huge thing. And I mean, it's double-sided, right? Because I think we kind of don't always talk about like the gray areas in between, like complete acceptance and complete rejection. And I think at least in like I think it's definitely a thing in Arab society and probably other cultures too, like this kind of in between of like, we don't accept this publicly, but there is a bunch of condoning. Like there are like, you know, I'm sure everyone's family has like the one person who never got married and like everyone knows, and that's or like condoning of like queer sex in certain circumstances that you I think that's just kind of always been a current undercurrent of probably every culture.
Members that at least acknowledge it, because like I know he does talk about a couple of his aunts that he's like, I could always go to them and they knew, and I had a great relationship with them, kind of thing. So like he kind of had both sides of the coin, where he's like, I knew I could go to this aunt, and like, especially when I left home, and because he left home at like 21, moved to New York and all this stuff, and he's like, every time I came back to like either Ohio or West Virginia, I could go to this aunt and be like, hey aunt so and so, and she saw me. So like he had luckily at least some members within his Arab side of his family that acknowledged him, but then he just said there was just other parts that it was just kind of like, it is what it is. And
no, I feel that too. And I think like I think there's also sometimes like I don't think I really there were some things that when I started like being more involved in like queer spawn spaces, I was like, oh, that's a thing for other people too. Like sometimes you would be surprised like how public people are in certain regards, but it's like, no, just because this person has this like released this film or this book or whatever doesn't mean that there's not other aspects of their life where they're doing a lot of like sidestepping and don't ask, don't telling and that stuff. And I think I at least it kind of got sold to me in this like kind of whitewashy American gay narrative, like the first thing you do is you come out to XYZ, and then like professional gay where you do things like write books, right? There's just like this hierarchy of publicness, and I most people I've met in this community are doing things a little differently.
Definitely. No, that's awesome. So
oh my
I'm
God,
sure
that is
glad
such a thing. That like order. Of, first you tell your parents. Then first you tell your step one. Your
now you are intermediate.
You reached level 3.
Congratulations.
Like a video game.
So like thinking back to like the last, couple years that you guys have been doing this, like what would you say is the biggest thing that you guys have learned, doing the podcasts?
For me, it's been that, okay, so at the beginning I was like, oh, there's probably a time limit to this. We'll run out of things to talk about. And like now what I've learned is that we're just beginning. There are so many connections still to be made. So just, I guess like how widespread not only the queer Arab community is, but like how many people are seeking that space, that particular space.
I think it's a few things. One thing that's been like really awesome for me to learn is just making like the international connections and learning like what queer organizing has looked like in all the countries across the region, or at least the ones we've been able to talk about. And then apart from like what's publicly kind of done in like, oh, like this is an organization we've had on the podcast, like just being in these spaces, you also understand like what kind of organizing is going on socially, even where there aren't like, very public organizations. And just on like a few other levels, honestly, it's been cool for me to just get more of a sense of like cultures from different subregions in the Swana that like I wasn't necessarily exposed to inherently growing up as a kid. Like I wasn't super exposed to North African culture, for instance, but now that we're all kind of like hanging out in these pan-regional spaces, I've gotten to learn a bunch more about it, which is just really cool. That's just a cool learning opportunity. And then I feel like, there's also like things we've just learned about like more like how to be a good interviewer and how to be like a good things, which I think are like very
teach you.
That's so real.
Like things that are kind of specific, kind of specific to the communities we're working with, like how to not be like the shitty, how not to be the shitty media, like what can we do instead of that? And I think there's
how
like
not to do to them what other people have done to you that you hated.
and I mean, we've messed up, like there's certain things like we always try to check in, like is there anything you don't want to talk about before. We try to give people like as much consent to disclosure of information as we can, like on every level, like, hey, are you okay with your name? Are you okay with your picture? Do you want to edit this section out? Do you want to have your look? Just like really making sure there's like consent on covered, all, like, cause we're not interested in being like the gotcha media where we like exert a little soundbite to get like, no, we want people to be represented as they want to be represented. But like, even with that intention, like sometimes you just have to like go through so many extra steps to just make sure you're following through on it.
And you have to like, we have to be proactive and like ask those things rather than expect to automatically get all that information, because like the guest isn't going to know.
They don't know what they don't know.
They don't know.
Aspects that we.
But I think like I think we have gotten better at it, and I think like not to be like we have achieved ethics. But like, I think it's on some level it's working, because there's a lot of, I think like there's a lot of people in this community who like don't trust the press at all. They'll like do events and be like, no, press is the enemy, but are like happy to talk to us, or like, oh, we're starting to do a little more public stuff. We think your podcast would be a good place to start. Like once you establish those kind of parameters of trust, like people do pick up on that. So like, it's just cool.
That's awesome. I love it.
Well, we're gonna have them the whole episode, you know, and we have a little segment that we call Ask Your Aunties, where someone sends in a question. A lot of times it's anonymous because they get a little juicy, but we'd love to get your opinions on these. The question for this week. So here we go. What time is it? It is
Ask
your Auntie. All right. Okay. So this is an anonymous one. And it goes, the question is this: not sure if you've talked about this in the past, but how do you handle a relationship where you are into the person, but depression has hit them, insecurity has hit them, and sex has stopped? The struggle with this, neither person wants to talk about opening the relationship for sexual reasons. The person depressed doesn't want to get help or isn't patient enough to receive help. I'm struggling with this person.
Ooh, I feel like they should start at the end of that question with the person depressed not wanting to get help.
Ooh, that's
a heavy one.
Heavy. That's heavy.
I asked for a good one.
I guess ultimately, like,
how long has this relationship been going on?
We don't know.
Oh, I think that I think that does matter though.
And I'll just toss this out there.
It ain't
I
new,
have a point of view, but
that.
I'll just toss this out there. The very last sentence was, I'm struggling with this person, which to me signifies a point of objectivity, of distance between like the relationship. Like I'm struggling with my partner, my boyfriend, my love, the one that I am so passionate about. No, I'm struggling with this person.
Ooh. So that's like
so there's already some like distance there.
Something.
I'm not going to go into details. I will say that there is history there, so it's not like a brand new relationship.
Sure.
Okay.
He knows anonymous. Okay. Now.
Okay, so it might not be completely anonymous.
There was a friendship behind it first. So there was a friendship first, and then it involved in something else. So there's some roots planted within there.
Like history.
So, okay, I think in general, I want to say, like, I fall into the trap of once before of, like, thinking that staying in a relationship because the person was going through shit was somehow, like, doing them a favor, or, like, oh, I can't leave them at this point. Like, think, and it's somewhere in there, there's a little bit of a savior complex. Like, I'm doing this person a favor by being in a relationship. But no, that's like really never true. Like, you're never doing someone a favor by resentfully being in a relationship with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Speak
like,
on it.
No one wants to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to be there.
Resentfully in a relationship.
Like,
That
I'm
needs
not
to be on
really
a
into
t-shirt.
this. Yeah. Okay, I actually just recently had a conversation with a friend who, her partner, and not, I'm not gonna give too many details, but like her partner is going through some depression issues and like also commitment fear. So it's a lot of things at once. And so ultimately they are taking a break, and she was like, you really need to get help for yourself, and like call your therapist, do whatever you need to do before I will be involved again, or like, and I don't know if that's something that they might want to try, is just
yeah, I mean, if they were friends before, like cutting off the relationship doesn't mean like ditching them, be like, deal with it. It could also just mean like, we're not working out right now, but I still want to be in your life.
Yeah, because there's a clear, there are gray areas between like breaking up and it's final, or like, or being fully in the relationship. There's the option of taking a break, or like, giving each other some space or separation.
What did Gwyneth Paltrow call it? And
unconscious separation, or
uncoupling.
Conscious decoupling. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of agree with both of y'all. Like, I think there's two things. One, I would just say, first, ask yourself, like, what is your limit? Like, understand how much you are able to, stand and be there for, because we all have a limit, and you don't want it to surpass your limit to the point where you are not being healthy for that person as well. The other thing I would also suggest too is, at least point out, is sometimes we do enable people by staying in situations. We might, and somehow we end up being that doorstopper that stops the person from, being able to move on to the next thing to get better. And I agree with, Alia, in the sense of, sometimes taking a break, and it's not breaking up, but it's allowing that person to go and get the help and grow to better the situation. So when you resume, you're better than where you left off at.
Right. Because like, if they both ultimately still want a relationship with each other, a break might make sense for them. Like,
and I think it's like a crucial thing is like, the person doesn't want to get help or is not getting help. Like, that's such a different question than like, oh, my partner is depressed, should I break up with them? It's just a totally different thing from like, my partner is depressed and also not getting help. Like, I'm assuming since it was phrased that way, let's assume that they somehow can.
Because it's true, you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped. Like, you can't do the work for them if they're not willing to. So at some point, you kind of have to be like, if you're not gonna do it, and I can't do it, then the only thing I can do is take care of my mentals, and my energy. And especially the way 2020 going. Woo!
That's a lot. There's a lot to be depressed about and a lot to be insecure about. Carell, what are you thinking?
Couple things. Getting that additional, I guess, piece of information that they've known each other for a while. Part of me is just like, you probably saw the signs before, so maybe you were trying to do a little savior complex, like you were saying earlier, because it's just like that. Sometimes, like depression, a lot of times, I mean, it grows, but a lot of times you see those signs before, So part of me is just like, did you step into it thinking you could help, and then now it's starting to get too much to bear, And then on the flip side, like Jarrell said, they're going to have to want to be getting help, and that's kind of the hard part. And so I think for me, I would be like, okay, let me at least maybe research or find a few doctors and be like, hey, I don't want to step on your toes or anything like that, but here's couple doctors I found, do with it what you want, because ultimately it's going to have to be your decision. But here's where I stand, and hopefully you're communicating where you're standing, and just like, hey, I'm not like, the sex isn't there. I feel like there's like a disconnect in us. The depression, I'm here to help you, but that's ultimately got to be your decision. And that's all you can honestly do, is communicate your piece of it. And if it's too much for you, you might need to have a break, you know. And it sucks because you don't want them to you don't want to see them fall deeper into a depression because you left. You know, you don't want to feel like that weight is on you. But then again, after a point, you got to protect your mental as well. You know, like, that starts to rub off on you. Like, that energy, like, it's contagious, and you are like the energy you're around. So if that's something you don't want, as hard of a situation that is, you might have to take a break for your own self, and then at least do as much as you can, providing the doctors or the locations, whatever, to hopefully aid them, that when they do come around, that they're like, okay, at least I don't have to sit here all day and try to research something now too, and like, you know, and have that weight on top of them. So there's no easy answer on this one, honestly, though.
Tricky.
Both are gonna require work. It's all gonna require work.
Work for both parties. And honestly, sex should be the last thing, as bad as that is to say, because everybody loves sex, but that should probably almost be the last thing right now, because if they're that depressed, that might add additional pressure on them as well.
Usually sex in the context of a more substantial relationship is symptomatic of something bigger, right? If you're just dating somebody and you're not having sex, but there's really not a sense of really strong commitment or togetherness or whatever, and you're not having sex, then sex is the issue. But if the context of a relationship, and I'm assuming that, you know, based on, you know, what we know and what's been shared, that, you know, this is a pretty substantial relationship, and the fact that, you know, sex has kind of stopped, you know, that happens for a lot of couples, and it's usually symptomatic of some other things that are going on in the context of the relationship. And I know that we talk about this all the time. It's you have to have open conversation. You have to, you know, put your big girl panties on, and, you know, have an uncomfortable conversation about, well, what exactly is going on, and, you know, more importantly, let's figure this out together. Doesn't mean you have to solve it right then and there in that one conversation. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, if I just have the right conversation, the right one conversation, that it's
one singular conversation.
I went there, right there with you. But like, a lot of us think that, oh, I can just have this one conversation and then it's squashed and it's over. We've come to a resolution and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we all know that subconsciously, we know that life is just not like that. You know, there are times, especially when you're dealing with someone that has, you know, mental health issues. You know, depression hits people very differently. And it's not something that can be solved by a conversation. It's something that a lot of people deal with, you know, their entire lives. And so it can be constant. It can come in ebb and flows. It can lead to other things. So, you know, I say all that to say that, you know, if Anonymous is interested in seeing this relationship work, I think it has to start with some kind of open and what will be uncomfortable conversation, to at least start talking about, how do we start carving a way through this? I would caution not to use sex as the catalyst for this conversation, because really it should not even be about the sex. It should be about you guys connecting, you guys feeling like you're on the same page. You guys should be building a relationship that is, you know, that is built on a solid foundation, and
that
sex
leads
is an additive.
to it. Yes.
And sex is an additive that enhances that relationship. You know, it's the end result of your closeness and togetherness, you know, and, you know, hopefully you'll be able to find some middle ground with that.
Where's this insecurity coming from? Like, is it because of the lack of sex? You know, that part of it too is like, is it because of the lack of sex? Like, the pressure you're putting on them, now they have an insecurity about themselves because of the sex? Like, that's a whole
that's possible.
Yeah, I think that's real. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have like, listen, there's a lot of coronavirus bodies going on. People didn't gain that.
Hey, stop talking about me.
Summer's almost over and, maybe a little bit uncomfortable now. Like, you have roles that you didn't have before or whatever. And that leads to a certain amount of insecurity, especially when it comes to like something as vulnerable as, sexual activity. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but that's a very real thing. And I'm not just talking about the superficial, like, oh, I don't have my abs anymore. Right. No, I'm talking about like, oh, well, if you don't feel sexy within yourself, and then being intimate with someone else becomes a little bit of a challenge. And so I don't know that that's this situation, but I think at the end of the day,
possibly,
yeah, because we talk about what you bring to the table, and if what you bring to the table is something physical to that counter, if that's what you feel that you bring to a relationship, and you no longer have that, then you will be like, okay, well, where is my seat? Like, like. And
I like what you said earlier, Jarrell, about this anonymous asking themselves some hard questions, because I think for those of, the three of us have been in very long standing relationships for, several years with our partners, and it has not we talked about, well, I mean,
I'm not at the several part yet.
Well,
but we'll get there.
I have. But all that the reason I say that is because we say all the time that relationships are what?
Work.
It's work. And you don't always get what you want. And sometimes you have to compromise. And so, I think what you were saying, Jarrell, earlier is it's going to be important for Anonymous to figure out, like, well, what's really important for you in the context of the relationship? Because if you're focused on the sex thing and not the mental health issues that are going on, or the connection issues that are going on that should be existing between you and your partner, and the fact that you guys are moving towards building a life together, if that's not the focus, and you're focused on, oh, well, I just want to have a threesome, and you're using these other things as an excuse because you just want to have an open relationship.
You speak a word.
I'm just saying, like, a person has to be clear about what they want. And if you want a meaningful relationship, then you will have to work with this person, and maybe you're going to have to sacrifice. And for some people, they've sacrificed not going without sex or whatever for years. But the end result is a lifetime with a person that they've built something meaningful with that is deeper than just the act of sex. So,
well, with that part, I kind of disagree, though, just because, I mean, like, because I don't think we should pigeonhole people in like, well, sex isn't important, because some people, because we talked about like your love languages, some people love language is physical touch, so for them, their priority will be that sexual connection.
But then I think he's saying that's not in this relationship, then he's not getting that love language.
Exactly. And so I totally agree with you, Jarrell.
So that's why the question may be like, his depression may be times 10 to him because he's simply not getting his number one love language. It may not be as big overall to the person who may be going through what's going on, but because he's not giving his love language, it hits him 10 times harder. Because I know when Fiznik doesn't touch me, or he don't kiss me or hold my hand, baby, let me tell you, like, boo, 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 boo. I know right away when he's upset, because I'm like, you didn't hold my hand. I ain't feel your feet touch me. I ain't feel your breath on my neck. I ain't feel your lips touch my lips. Like, I ain't feel none of that, So,
I agree. I agree with what you're saying, and I'm not discounting the importance of sex in the context of the relationship. My point is, Anonymous has to figure out what is important to him.
Yeah.
Or her, whomever this person is. They have to figure that out and then go from there, because at the end of the day, we have to, as individuals, live our truths. You can't live somebody else's truth. You can't live the world's truth for you, because that's stress and damaging. You can't live your partner's truth for you, because that's stress and damaging. You have to be authentic to yourself. So if the sex part of it is the most important part of it, or a critical part of it, all I'm saying is you have to have that difficult conversation with the person that you're with.
That part.
Period.
That's true. Wow.
And if it's not the sex, then you have to tackle some of these other things that are going on. And that's going to take an element of vulnerability for yourself to be able to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to work with you through this. Or, you know what, I just have to come to a realization that this, whatever this is, despite all the other things that are going on, is not for me.
Yeah. And that's also okay.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Just like also it's important to discuss, I mean, I don't know the reason for wanting an open relationship, if that has been a desire of this person's like before.
Well, the question said neither of them wanted it, right? Or
I thought like
no, he just says they're not willing to have the conversation about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
neither person wants to talk about opening a relationship for sexual reasons.
Yeah, and like if this has been a thing before, I mean, they have to have that conversation of like, can they find a relationship model that works for both of them? And if not, that's another conversation, because if they can't come to an agreement on that, like that,
where do you go?
You might.
Where do you go?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Like that alone could be a reason.
The lease is up in 6 months.
Yeah.
Start looking at apartments, looking at the finances.
Yeah. Wait, I'm with all y'all. I want to like just touch on the point of like, okay, so I agree, and also I just want to like acknowledge why the person would be like feeling insecure about the open relationship thing, because I think like apart from separate like insecurities about like how you're feeling about your body or whatever, I think there is just a certain like sense of inferiority with like, I don't have the right sex drive for this person, I'm not providing them with enough sex, like, that means I'm inferior. Which like I think just in general, like if we kind of got past that as people and thought about just like finding different matches, like here are different models to like puzzle piece different people's interests in sex together, right? Like that would be cool, but like I think that's probably not where they're at if they're like depressed and also feeling like there's something they're not able to provide for their partner, right? So I get why they wouldn't want to. I get where they'd be coming from, even if like an open relationship would be a theoretically good solution.
And I feel like that's a whole other subject too, because like I know so many people who don't believe in monogamy, but then want a relationship. It's like, you know, it's
I blame Walt Disney for this. I blame Walt Disney for this because
not Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, bitch.
Yes, because we have grown up with these fairy tales about the archetypal relationship and what it's supposed to be, as if, and you know, obviously, like our society reflects our. I'm being facetious about Walt Disney, but our society has defined what relationships are supposed to be like. Right. And I think in part, it takes a lot of the humanity out of the relationship, out of the coupling of two people. And the reality of it is, it's just like there are different kinds of podcasts that may on the surface be, facilitated by similar kinds of people. That doesn't mean that the construct of that podcast, i.e. the relationship, that construct has to be the same. And so I think it's worth exploring, like, well, what does a relationship look like for you and I, or for these two? And if we were to like shirk away kind of like the shackles of like what it's supposed to look like, and just talk about what is it that we really want, and can we make that happen together
over time as well.
That's
like, another scary part that people don't talk about, is that Corel at 28, when I met Corey, to Corel at 36, there might be an ebb and flow and growth and different wants and things like that.
Right, yeah. And
if I'm married to my husband, and just using me for an example, that I should feel comfortable enough voicing as well, that I don't want to stay the same as 28 me.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to stay the same as 42 him, and that should be okay. And I think, like you were saying, like this construct that we just fantasy out there, that's the part that is never in these conversations, that like, no, we had to work and talk, and we had some fights. There was some nights that I did not like that person. Yeah. But guess what? At the end of the day, we concluded that we still care enough about each other to grow and change, and at least acknowledge the change and growth in our relationship over time.
Yeah, there's that pressure is so unhealthy of like, we agreed on XYZ, or like we started dating, but you're not allowed to change your mind about like any of it in the future. And like that pressure makes it really hard to even start out in a healthy way, or like,
I think this is why a lot of people, like after a breakup, they change themselves completely. I mean, sometimes it's a rebellion thing, but sometimes it's like you were not allowing yourself to change, but like on a normal pace throughout your life before then, because you thought to remain in this relationship, you have to like stay the same little puzzle piece to fit with this person instead of just like Play-Doh.
Yeah. And that's a healthy relationship is like being able to approach those things with each other and like not be resentful about it and not
And I think also like that I like, for me, that like capacity for change also like totally includes breaking up. Like I think breaking up is like way too stigmatized. Sometimes it's just like the thing that makes the most sense for the people involved. And
people break up in the name of love all the time. I just, I love that this question is being asked, and I love that our community is feeling comfortable enough to be able to share these things with us, because we say all the time, that one person's struggle oftentimes when shared becomes a shared struggle that a lot of people have, and they're looking for similar answers. And I think at the end of the day, what I would just say to Anonymous is, this is not something that likely will be solved overnight. This is not a one size fits all answer. I think there's going to be a lot of self-discovery, a lot of personal questions that you'll have to ask yourself, and some decisions around how do you want to have this dialogue with your partner, to figure out what next steps look like for the both of you.
And just go relieve yourself in the corner in the meantime.
There's a lot of good porn out there, baby. There's a lot of it.
Oh, Lord. But continue to send in your Ask Your Auntie questions, aya@minorityereport.com, or DM us, text us, call us, whatever it may be. And be careful, because some of these conversations on a phone call might turn into an Ask Your Auntie. But no, we enjoy this segment. So, but in the meantime, before we go any further, too, obviously we want to send our thoughts, prayers, condolences, and everything to Beirut right now. That's heavy. That is.
I saw some of those videos yesterday, and
I can't even fathom it.
I mean, like,
even seeing it, I'm like,
I've
kind of had to get off of social media just from like
I believe it.
I mean, I think it's like, this is just kind of my personal feelings. Like, it's one thing when people are like posting documentation videos from their own phone, and people are there, and I think that's really important. But then it's also like everyone is sharing the same explosion video, and I get it. I just can't watch it again.
I feel that. I watched it once, and I was just like, the fact, like, I saw it and I was like, oh my God, this is messed up. And then the fact that like part of my brain was like, this looked like something out of a movie.
It did.
And that fact, like, even took it that much more further emotionally for me, that this is even real. Because it was just like, I had no words. I was just like, this just can't be right. Like, you watch something in entertainment and you're like, oh, you don't react like that. But then when you see it in real life, it's just like, no, it just doesn't feel right.
When I first saw it, like, it took me a good maybe half hour after I first saw it to do a double take of like, wait, this happened. Because at first I just saw it, people posting it, I was like, what?
Right,
and then I had to revisit it a little bit later and be like, oh my God, this really happened, and this is how major it really was.
I think like a lot, I've kind of been saying like a lot of times in quarantine, I've been kind of having like non-synchronous processing of what's going on. Like there was just a period of time where so much shit happened, and I couldn't remember when I cried, and then I just had an emotional breakdown and just like thought of everything. And this was a little bit like that. Like got out of a meeting and then just saw like everyone checking themselves in as safe as in this like explosion. I'm like, what the fuck? Like what the fuck is this? And then you look it up and you're still like, what the fuck is this? That's not what fireworks do.
No.
And
that part, because oh yeah.
I know, because like when the first video I saw, like I was like, what's burning? And I did not, I was not ready for what I was about to see after that. And then, like you said, it took a while for me to like comprehend. I was like, wait, hold on. Wait, what is this?
Yeah.
And like was just kind of frozen there. Like, what did I just see?
And my American ass was all like, well, let me go on CNN. Let me go look up, because like I'm trying to figure out stuff. And then like CNN is not reporting anything. They were talking about Donald Trump and his, you know, like thing on HBO, whatever, with whomever. And I'm just like, what is going on? And then I was like, you know what? And kind of like, I was just like, you know, I don't want to say nothing. Until there are sources of actual stuff going on, like, I don't want to speculate. I just want to keep people in my thoughts and positive vibes and prayers and thoughts, and just figure out and support and you know, help as much as I can. That's it. At this point, I don't even want to know the why. I want to know what's next. How do we, like, you know, how to help and be better at this point. Like,
we've posted on our social media like links and everything to donate if you can.
Yeah, you posted.
Obviously, be aware. This is when a lot of people unfortunately try to scam you, which is fucking horrible.
Don't send money to the government.
So impact.lebanon is the Insta account to look at.
Lebanese Red Cross is also good. And then if anyone's thinking about donating, just know that like US dollars are gonna go like really far now, even if you're not donating like a bunch of money, because there's just like so much hyperinflation. Like the lira is like shrunk, so like USD will just go really far. So even if you're like, I'm only donating $10, like it's going to be significant in translation.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So we'll continue to post that on all our social. Ooh, that was heavy. What else? But I guess also this week, I guess on a higher note,
hard left.
Beyonce. It is a hard. I didn't know how to even transition this. I was just like,
there's
no,
there's things that exist, things that are happening at once.
I was like,
this is all happening at once. So let's do it. We watched Black is King the other day.
Just first of all, just like I mean, stunning. I know people have commentary on like all the implications and stuff, but just like quality, like damn. Yeah.
On an aesthetic level, absolutely stunning.
I'm also a choreographer, and like like the whole thing, I was like, I'm waiting for the credits. Who choreographed this? Let me take the picture. I was like, okay, it makes sense. Like, okay,
Do you recognize like six?
Like, right when you think this lady cannot top herself anymore.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna prove you all wrong.
I've had a very spiritual experience, and I'm not saying that facetiously. I'm not saying that theoretically. Like, it literally was a spiritual experience watching it, because I think there is so much subtext of self-hate and destruction of personal beauty and appreciation for not just Blackness, but ancestry. And that spoke to me. I know a lot of people had a lot of other feelings and whatnot, but for me, it was those moments. And I'm not like a crier at all. And I was sitting there just like tears rolling down, as I'm like, there were certain scenes that just really hit me. I mean, it really hit me in my heart. And, you know, it really was the love letter to Africa that I think a lot of Black people needed, particularly here in the United States. You know, and I'm not African, so I don't know their experience. I can only speak for mine. But it was incredible how she connected so many dots and showcase the beauty of our heritage. And it actually made me think about, you know, how we think that technology is advancement, you know, but there's an element of dependency that pulls us away from the spiritual nature of just being a human being on this planet. And technology, we know, disconnects people, even though it's supposed to connect people. It makes people insular. And so I left with this feeling of, God, I want to be closer to my family. I want to be closer to my friend. Like, I want intimacy. I want spirituality. So I loved it for all the reasons that you guys mentioned. You know, yes, it was beautifully choreographed and shot, and the fashion was amazing. The scenery was incredible, and you know, I love how Black it was. But for me, it was like that undertone of, let's try to chip away at 400 years of what slavery did to the Black person, right? In terms of how we see ourselves, or how we're supposed to see ourselves. And let's tap into the lineage of Africanness, and that we are all from the motherland. And we've so seen, you know, how the white man has, and I'm using that metaphorically, has degraded these images of Africa and have made us hate that. You know, like, to make fun of, you know, like people that live in huts and whatever. Like, at the end of the day, these people were closer and more authentic to who they were as individuals, regardless of whether they had access to some of the privileges we have access to, than we are. They know themselves better than we do. You know, they're living their authentic lives, and we're out here stunting for the gram, or, you know, on TikTok and whatnot, because we feel empty inside. Like, those are like the things I'm starting to get like. So anyway, that's my piece.
Oh, you get emotional.
I think it was amazing as an official member of the Beehive. It was.
She gets her card out like.
it was literally, it was everything. And the fact being that, like, the idea came because of the fact that, like, the original Lion King, 3 years ago when Beyonce was having the conversation with Disney about playing the role of Nala and Lion King, and it was told that with the music, like, the #1 song from Disney, The Lion King, was written and done by a Black man, but he got zero credit for it. And that didn't sit right with her. And so that's what inspired her to want to create this visual masterpiece to pay homage to something that, kind of like we were saying, like, the white man is kind of like auditioned us and took us away from, and also kind of made money off of as well, lots of money off of, and poured back to the roots of it. And honestly, I felt so incomplete after watching it, because of the fact that I felt like there were just parts of me and my hair, of just where my ancestors come from, that I know nothing about. And I can't say I know exactly who I am if I don't know where I come from. And after watching it, I just felt the need to want to go back to Africa and, you know, like, to see where it is that my ancestors came from. And also not just go back, but also just pay attention more. And, you know, not just, oh, when Beyonce does it, or when something devastating happens, but just to constantly be checking in and paying attention to the politics and everything that's happening back home and stuff like that too. And so it was gorgeous. The message was clear. It was not a Beyonce thing. It was a all of us thing.
Yeah.
You know, like, and even I talk about sharing the damn spotlight. Now I feel like Carell, because I feel like I'm gonna cry. And I ain't got nothing but like 5 emotions. But like, just watching her being like, this may be my name, but the spotlight is not mine. And seeing in parts of Black and King when she'd be like, this spotlight is all yours. And the artist who was the feature on it got their time to shine. Right? And it wasn't like a Beyonce right next to her being like this, you know. It was a
They got the whole scene.
Right, you got the whole scene.
Just them.
These frames are all yours, boo boo.
Yep. And they killed it. And they
ate it all the way up.
All of it. Crushed it.
It was good. I cried twice. I cried twice. It was amazing. Brown skinned girls.
Oh, don't do it to me.
That part, that took me out. I'm not gonna lie, that took me out. Because even just being as a Black man, it was just like,
there's just a power in feeling seen.
Yeah.
Like that's what this whole thing, like I felt seen.
Mm-hmm.
And like it makes you realize how far and few in between that you feel seen. Yeah. Just for simply being in your body, melanin and all. And so that's what like made me boo-hoo. Every time I thought about that, like I would start boo-hooing, like I'm about to now. Because it's just like, it makes you realize, wow, I don't feel like I'm seen at that kind of level that often. And for her, someone at her status, she doesn't have to do this.
She don't. She
could be chilling at her mansion with Jigga, with that big ass stone. and like, so she doesn't have to spend her money like this. She doesn't have to spend her time like this. Each and every time she does this stuff, she could be chilling. And that's the part that like chokes me up, because not everyone takes the time to do that at that level. People barely do it in your regular ass life. You know? And for someone like her that everyone kind of already looks up to and like puts her on this pedestal, for her to take this time to say, nope, you know what? No one else is doing it, so I'm going to do it for us. And I'm going to make sure you feel seen. I'm going to make sure people feel seen in their own scenes. I'm going to step out the way, like you said. It was everything for me.
Can we talk about how much of a bad bitch you gotta be that when on Twitter, if you like anything with the hashtag Black is King, if you heart it, it turned into the little lion icon. I said,
that's cute.
I said, get out of here.
Wait, I'm not on Twitter, so I missed this.
I have to try that.
Yeah. I'm not a Twitter person either myself, but I was literally I searched the hashtag Black, and I was just going to like shit just to be like, I just want to see this shit. I want this
right now.
You know what I enjoy too? Like to go on like the not always having to have the spotlight. Even on IG, you like you, I'm a nerd. I look at like, okay, who's the choreographer? Oh, okay, that was Jaquel again. Okay, going to their IG and seeing the pride they had in this too. Maybe boo-hoo some more, because that shows from the top down that they were all on the same page and had the same message and wanted the same thing. And that doesn't happen all the time either. Like a lot of times, like you said, sometimes the stars want that shine. No, she's like, okay, I know who I am. I'm secure who I am.
Yeah, and let's talk about the fact that this was on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Like, out of all places.
Oh my God, good point.
So I'm gonna get that Netflix check. I'm gonna get that Disney Plus check. I'm gonna get all these checks.
Interesting. I did not think about that.
She said, oh yeah, you can see me on Netflix and do it over there. Oh, you can see me on Disney Plus and get that count. Oh, you can see me on YouTube. I get them checks. Don't worry.
I love it.
And I don't know how many times have you seen it already?
I've seen it 4 times.
I've seen it
3.
I've seen it 4.
I've seen it 3.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't over.
I was going to watch it again this weekend. I'm just saying. I have to watch it again with Adam. I watched it 3 by myself.
Yeah. I watched that same here. I watched the 3 by myself. I watched the first time I watched it with Fizz.
Can we just talk about how, like, because they did this all throughout Insecure. Black people were lit up so beautifully. Even the darkest of darkest scenes where you get to see the richness of like that brown skin. It just...
And the richness of them gowns. I was like, woo, she spent some coins on these outfits.
And it was funny. And then funny, Fizzik was so excited. Fizzik was so excited too, because one of the designers, so Move Forever, where she has like the little leopard print one. An Albanian designer actually made that, because he also made her, I forget what award show it was, but when she had the black silhouette with the white like little embroidered like silver. There was the same person that made that, so he also made the dress for Mood Forever when he's when she's with Jay-Z. And
what was your favorite? What was your favorite video part? Like your favorite?
My
like
power.
Power,
when she's like, come on. I was holding myself like this too, like. Come on now. I was ready.
It was too much. It was too much for me. I couldn't take it.
Even at the end, even like during the credits, when the cast list just kept going on and on and on, you're like, this is such
those were some big group scenes
like,
they got me.
This was like a truly collective project. And,
Absolutely.
And people know how to shut up and not say nothing.
Nothing.
Let me, you got the right people in the room when everybody is like,
everybody shut up. All 1,000 people that worked on that damn thing. And even the people, like, they saw him in the airport. They saw him at the McDonald's. Right. Everybody shut up.
Right. And for a whole year, let me tell you, if I had to sit for a whole year saying that I work with Beyonce, I would be dying. I'm like, I ain't working.
It makes you wonder. It does make you wonder what that contract is. Like, it makes you wonder, like, what is in it? Like, if you, like, I have to imagine it's like two things. One is if you say anything, first we're gonna sue your ass, like until
Jay got them goons
and sue all of your descendants. So that's one. And then number two, they're not gonna release whatever the thing was that you were in.
Yeah. Your gown is cut, bitch. Your gown
it's a wrap. We would just do it. We would just do something else. So like, I feel like, like it has to be.
The second one would be so inconvenient though if someone blabs and then they had to cut a whole scene.
Right.
But
Beyonce, like, she's look.
Okay, true.
Do you know how many pieces of choreography and how many videos that she's doing and how many? There's probably so much shit that's sitting on the cutting room floor.
I know that's what I think every time. I'm like,
think about Prince, right? Think about Prince. Prince in Minnesota had his whole a whole library of thousands of songs, catalogs.
We're never
of
gonna see
music.
Beyonce. Beyonce got the don't do this, and don't do this list. Her list is like sealed tight. We ain't gonna see.
So I have
to
imagine there are tons of projects that she has actively worked on that just will never see the light of day, or at least while she's alive.
Damn. Ooh, but Jarrell, we might have to learn that My Power routine.
Oh, you haven't learned it yet?
we might have to do that for the gram.
Let me tell you, I'm down.
Okay.
She already has the number. She has the number.
Okay, then let me set my game up.
I got the footwork. Look, I got the whole thing, girl. Look.
These two are the dancers. Not me.
Man, she got it.
Okay. Which hairstyle was your favorite?
Bitch, was she on the ladder and she got like the 54-inch?
Oh yeah, the ladder scene was so beautiful.
I said, honey, look, neck was stiff. Okay.
Like I can't with Beyonce. Don't stun on me that hard.
I couldn't. I absolutely could not. And when she's on like the horse and she has like the braids with the horns.
She was like brown cow stunting.
Bitch, I said, why are you doing this to us? Why are you doing this? Like, I can't do that. That's unobtainable. You just
It made me want some braids so bad.
Look. I was like, I'm already regular.
So bad in my head. Okay, I'm sorry. We could stay on Beyonce all day.
No, I can't wait to watch it.
It does make me think, like, I know people who are in that, and now I'm thinking, like, yeah, they were just sitting on that. They were just like going through
like how? The whole time.
Conversations like, hey girl,
I was just like talking about like they weren't working on that.
Right?
No, girl, I'm at the crib.
Right.
I'm at the crib, girl.
Now you can be mad. You're like, so you were lying to me. I asked you, and you lied to me.
I mean, I didn't ask. Like, I don't normally go up to people being like,
did you happen?
So, are you working on a mega film with Beyonce right now? Yeah.
But now you will, though. Now you will.
Yeah. Will you really? Turn your FaceTime on.
If you guys get a chance to, there's a documentary on Netflix called The Remix. I think it's called The Remix Hip Hop. And it's more from a fashion point of view. So it's talking about fashion and hip hop. And it's only like an hour. It's like 45 minutes to an hour. But what was her name? Dang it, what is her name? at any rate, one of the stylists that's been a forerunner of hip hop culture's work with Puffy to like identify his main look. She was a stylist that came up with Little Kim's iconic BMA with the titty out.
With the M.
I can't remember what her name is.
Mia or something like that.
Maybe.
I definitely don't know.
But at any rate, in that documentary, she was working on the Beyonce, the Beyonce look that was for when they were in the Louvre, the Louis Vuitton camel colored cat suit.
Oh, you're talking about June Ambrose.
I don't remember what her name is.
June Ambrose, yeah.
And it's not gonna hit. But all I'm saying is, in the documentary, she was saying, I have a very important client, and I can't really talk about what it is, but she prefers things to be done a certain kind of way. So people be sitting on these. There's some high stakes, and they sit on this information for years.
But the one that the stylist for this one, I'm trying to look her name up now. It's Zarina Akers. And she's been doing kind of like the last couple years with Beyonce. And
my phone even has the background.
Which one?
Look,
what's your background?
My phone is even the background. I don't know if you can see it. Look.
Yeah.
Okay, that same scene.
Nobody. I ain't never had nobody outside of myself and my nieces and nephews as my backdrop. But you best believe
that same scene where she had the upgrade you braid with that lace like bottom. I was like, Beyonce, okay. I tried not, even in the reaction video, I talked about her body so much. Her body. I try not to talk about women's bodies at all.
Them twins did her body right. Look, they did her body right.
I was like, how's your body?
There were no Spanx at all.
Nothing.
That waist was snatched, and then it went bloop bloop. She gave you Mother Africa hips.
Mother Africa.
Look, that scene when she got the body paint and the black and green. Disney was scared because that was all figures and curves, and she was just with my little like painted bra on underneath, just in case because we got children in the room. Look, I'm giving your body.
I was like, this body.
Snatch. And even in like the already video where she was dancing because she had was it a Gucci what was the body set?
Like bodysuit.
Yes. And she looked look.
You know what my favorite part was, like she said that little neck turn she did in that routine, and then she was like
This did make up for the Black Weekend, because remember, was it Black Weekend or Black Picnic? Black Picnic, that song
Black
that came
Parade,
out.
Parade, girl.
Whatever, girl. Look, it made up for that.
Black Picnic, I
like that.
Because that shit came out and did nothing.
It was good though.
It was good. Okay. Don't get me wrong. It was good.
Black Parade was. I like the song actually a lot, and I actually like the extended version of it too. Yeah, and you know what? She would have been. She would have been that bitch if she would have cut something that quick into this. But she did, because it was in the credits. It was a song for the credits. So it was still.
And you could tell she was still filming some of this recent, because you could see she was a little slimmer in some of those scenes.
Well, the song, and I can't forget what the name of the song is, but it's a song that's the last song of the album, where she's like in the water and her hair's flowing in the water. That came out last year, so that was put in here. So that was shot way before. Spirit.
Like even to see like her in Spirit, like, which was shot obviously at the beginning of this whole Black is King process. So the one, even like the picture you have your phone, or the one where she has the hair and it kind of like goes like that. You can tell she was a little more slim. I mean, her body was incredible the whole time, but I was like, you could tell like this was like literally a year process.
Right.
So anyway, okay, sorry.
Okay, I do have a question though. I do have one question though. And it's not Black is King.
Okay.
Related. Mulan and what Disney's doing with Mulan. How do we feel about like that $30?
$30?
Yeah.
So have you two heard
It's
this?
a wrap.
That they're going to release Mulan now on Disney Plus. So even if you're paying the $7 a month or whatever it is, you got to pay $30 extra on top of it to watch Mulan.
What?
I'm not.
Nope.
Yeah,
they're doing this higher release program,
and I feel like they're doing it because they said that, like, especially after this last weekend with Black is King, there's now like 16.5 million subscribers to Disney Plus, and so now that they have that many subscribers,
like,
I think that's right. I feel like that's trying how to compensate for the box office and what they paid to this.
I mean, I get it as a business strategy, which I don't care. I don't care about Disney as a business. I get why they did it, but also fuck that. Yeah.
I mean, that story. I mean, and again, and I don't want this to come off insensitive to like the Asian community or whatever, but like that's not a story that resonates with me. So I wouldn't even go see that in a movie theater. That's a movie I would wait for it to come. If we weren't in a pandemic, I would wait for that movie to come out on Netflix on demand, and I wouldn't pay the $13. I would wait till it goes down to the $7.99, and I would pay that.
And see, I'm the auntie that is all about it because Mulan was one of my other favorites. Like Lion King was one, and Mulan was two for me. I always gravitated to the POC. Mulan. I mean, what Lion King, Mulan, and Pocahontas. I always loved the POC narratives growing up than any other one.
They came out with a Pocahontas. I would pay $50.
But let me tell you, the one line for Mulan that still gets me when fucking Mushu was like, "Just honor on your family, just honor on your cow." I love it.
I honestly don't think I've ever seen Mulan.
Oh, it's good. Like,
honestly, I'm really interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah. I will say that's a little problematic though because they make like some drag queen homophobic remarks and the cartoon. On that episode and I rewatched it like a couple months. I was like, ooh, that's kind of problematic. However, still the representation. And like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, I'm ride or die POC. So I'm paying when they come out with the Black Ariel, I'll pay $30. Look, I'm paying the $30 plus them for the VIP version of that, but I'm still supporting my Asian community, and I mean, because I love the story. I think it'll be awesome, and I believe some of the directors from one of my favorite movies, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, had to do with some of the choreography and directing of this movie too. So it's going to be very much on like that kind of.
Well, when they take that $30 off around December, that's when I'll watch.
What'd you say?
When they take that $30 off around December, that's when I'll watch.
Well, good for you.
I saw Mulan as like a queer icon, honestly, but like Mulan, yeah. But I'm interested to see what they do with it this round because I feel like they like now they've. I honestly didn't notice the like homophobic stuff. More like people have criticized it for being like not very accurate culturally, and I'm just wondering like, are they gonna update that this time?
I hope so.
I think it's gonna be, and I think that's why they took the music out of it because it's not gonna be a musical. So there won't be any music in it, and so I think that was part of the reason why to give more to pay more homage to the culture.
The music is the stuff from that movie that gets me.
We don't need no Scientologists.
We don't need no Tom Cruise playing an Asian. That's all I know.
Oh my goodness.
So if it's culturally accurate, I'm here for it. But $30, I mean, honestly, what can they do? Like, we have a lot of big budget movies coming. They're probably doing this to see if it's going to succeed or not. So
they have to bite the bullet because they've been pushing back a lot of feature films, and people are not going back to movie theaters anytime soon. And even if they are, with the social distancing regulations, they wouldn't be able to make up the difference, by the number of people that are by the lack of the number of people that would be able to fit within a movie theater anyway. So they have to start trying some things, and I guess
well, Amazon Prime started it first though, because Amazon Prime has been taking a lot of the movies that they are network with and have been releasing them straight to Amazon Prime, and you can pay like $15.
They kind of been doing like those.
Yeah. But also, like, what the fuck?
No, but I mean, but they're like, I mean, but like, not to the pay level, but like, still movies that were going to be released in theaters. that was still really straight to Amazon though.
Right.
How did they come up with $30 though? Because you don't need that. And even in Manhattan, that's not the price of a ticket to go see that movie.
It is here.
I mean, it may be 26.
Yeah, no. Honestly, absolutely not. Because it all depends on what movie theaters you go to. Because like, if you go to like the one that Biz and I go to, which is like the recliner one.
I love those, and you got
yeah, those are more.
Yeah,
those are more.
I'm telling you,
like,
because I go.
Not 30.
No.
I'm Auntie Chardonnay.
If you go, but hold on. But I'm talking about like if you pay for 2 people though, that's the price you get.
I'm just saying for one person.
Right, but I mean, but mostly people watching that or buying Mulan, it's not one person watching it. It's more than one person watching.
But does it come with a reclining chair?
Yeah, that part.
Right. Will they bring the food? Will they bring the food out to my chair?
Slurpee.
I mean, and then you also get 7 people. You get 7 profiles on there too. So I mean, I think they're kind of like trying to play like, okay, like how many people
are you able to rent it? Like that's my problem. I was like you're paying $30. Hell,
you should buy it.
Own it.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
So
that
how
part.
long can you rent this?
That part.
Yeah.
So,
we got questions.
Disney. But thank you for Beyonce, but we got questions about
right.
Exactly.
But I guess before we got out of here too, Ellen's been in the news a lot.
Hot water.
Oh yeah.
She seems like a shitty person.
Yeah. A shitty boss. But like, is that enough to be like canceled? There's a lot of shitty people in this world there's
So help me to understand, because I'm not as close to this story, because I've seen the stories, but like I'm confused. Because what it sounds like is that it's not really about Ellen. Like Ellen is a horrible person. It is the senior team that is doing shit to like the underlings or whatever. And she, because she's the head of the show, she's being held accountable. That's what I'm understanding.
What's your name, your brand?
No, I just want to know. And do I have it right, or is it a different thing? Because I'm not as close to it.
But she's like, apparently she's been ignoring these issues that have been brought to her attention, even if she wasn't the one.
Yeah, and I think she hasn't been treating employees great. The specific like sexual harassment and stuff was not like from her. It was from like people on her directing team, but also
she ignored it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we canceled her since the George Bush thing.
Yeah, so she chose
like what happened?
She was like,
when
I
don't even watch Ellen, so I don't.
Oh, she went to the football page. Yeah, she watched football with the Bushes. Yeah.
And she's like, and when she was called out, she was like, "Oh, I believe in having friends with all beliefs," and like, and so you're like, cool. So you kick it with a war criminal, like I
like having friends who aren't war criminals, but that's just like a personal preference.
It's a personal hobby.
Come on, Nadia. Yes, I felt that.
That's just a preference. I mean,
I don't know.
That part.
Yeah, when we take applications for friends, it's like, are you a war criminal? Yes or no? If you say yes, I'm probably not gonna go further.
Like there's other people in the world that can be hanging out.
Yeah, like I'm gonna probably end it there.
Yeah, I don't know. I personally think that I don't know if necessarily she should be canceled. However, I think she should be held accountable because again, like you put your name as your brand, and so for there, you have to know what's happening from both ends, from the top to the bottom. And if you are so careless where you're like, oh, well, it's just my name and, I'm going to put other people in charge to do my work, you are allowing other people to taint who you are and your image,
Oprah wouldn't do that.
And she know better. But she knew better. She knew better, especially after coming out in the 90s and how much she had to go through after so many people canceled her, and she had to basically rebuild from the ground up. Being a person in the queer community that had to regain, her spotlight, I felt like she should have done better. On top of that, speaking to those in the queer community who are like, well, she's one of us, so we're not going to cancel her. You can follow people blindly, and you can end up dead and misplaced or whatever, just like that. Like
lemmings off the cliff.
Right. You shouldn't follow people blindly like that. Like you can relate to people, or people could be like you and still be bad people at the same time, or still do something wrong, you know, and you don't get a pass just because you're the same skin color or the same race or sexual orientation or age or whatever, you know, marginalized box you want to put, you know, people into, whatever. Like,
well, doesn't this also just exemplify the point that people who choose to say nothing when shit is going down are just as bad as the people that are doing the work or doing the you know, the damage, because your silence enables and encourages that behavior to go on, and it doesn't go checked.
Yeah, and she's the one with the most power there too.
Right. That part.
So her being silenced, like,
yeah, that's the thing about like critiquing cancel culture. It's like sometimes like, why are we going through all these hoops to just defend celebrities that have like honestly like more power and more second chances than most people.
Most people do.
Like, absolutely. I respect what she went through, but also like, I don't know, some people like they don't take their experiences and decide to make things better for other people. Some people, they just get power and
it's that part too. Like the saving grace of this is how much good she's actually done. Like if it hadn't been for all that, I would have been like, throw all of her away. But like you can't erase all the work she's done.
And that's the part I was just like, the hard thing, and not just playing devil's advocate, the hard thing sometimes when you get to that level is one mistake literally is cancel culture. And I don't know if that's reality either. You know, it's just like, there's shit that that I did probably when I was younger.
You can't have this whole like passage for gorillas in Africa and not and care about that, but you can't give a damn about your people.
But my point is, I think a lot of it might be because she is the head, and rightfully so. You are the head. Ruda to the tutor, you need to be aware of what the hell's going on. But my point with just almost like the cancel culture part is just like, damn, sometimes you do one mistake and that mistake defines your lifetime. Rightfully so sometimes too.
I do feel like,
I don't know this situation because I don't watch Ellen.
I do feel like you're making a really good point around the specific consequence of quote unquote cancel culture, because the reality of it is that you know, people need to be held accountable for their actions, right? Yes. And I think people have kind of lumped in accountability with canceling, and they are not one and the same. Like, if you do something that is, you know, if you make a mistake, which we all make mistakes, you know, does that automatically mean that your livelihood, the livelihoods that you support, you know, the platform that you use should all be jeopardized? Do you not give the opportunity to make amends and learn from that and do better? You know, so I think that we need to have a little bit more responsibility in when we call for a canceling of a person versus, you know, how we're holding someone accountable. And what does holding them accountable look like?
That part,
And let's articulate that, you know, like, you know, does that mean that, you know, somebody like Ellen has to have, you know, certain types of staff on set, you know, or, you know, on crew or whatever? Does it mean that, you know, that she has to donate half of her funds to some kind of a blah, 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 blah? We need to be able to articulate that other than just saying, okay, no, you got to be canceled, you're done.
I don't know. I'm torn just because of the fact that, like I mentioned, like her wife got her that, I believe it's gorillas. But it's like a gorilla refuge in Africa for her birthday, her 60th birthday 2 years ago. It was like a big deal.
This. Yeah.
I was a huge Ella fan. Like I used to watch, especially the YouTube videos. I'm a subscriber. Anyways, so like you can't have that. You can't have two fucking shows. You got your talk show and you got your Ellen Games and Games. You can't be involved in like three big ass things that involve multiple people to make this shit happen and not know that something bad is happening. I just feel it's impossible. Yeah. There's too many people. Ellen is one person. There's no fucking way that she can make all of these fucking things happen without knowing or putting other people in play and knowing what's going on. Yeah. There had to have been at least one text, one email, one fire, some shit that has happened where someone brought it to her attention and she ignored it.
Yeah,
and that is the part that
I find it
me.
problematic I agree with you. I just find it problematic when people like throw out cancel culture, because to me, like, cancel culture is R. Kelly. Like somebody who has taken the innocence of children, criminal, moral, like acts of violence and terror and whatnot against, you know, against other human beings. That's canceled.
We can't rate trauma though. We can't rate trauma because the people that are talking, they got something to say and they have feelings. And they're, but I just don't want us to get into comparing someone else's struggle to another person's struggle, because I don't want us to talk about saying that then theirs don't matter.
I'm not talking about the victims. That's a very strong difference between talking about the aggressor versus the victim.
No. I'm talking about the victims. I'm talking about the victims too. No,
you're talking about the aggressor. Yes, okay. I'm talking about the aggressor. Okay. You can't put Ellen in the same category as R. Kelly.
No, but
that's what cancel culture is.
No, but I think, but to me, cancel culture comes from the victims, not for the person that did something. It comes from the victims. It comes from the person that was done wrong first, because you're not just going to cancel somebody for nothing. You have to have a reason to cancel somebody, and it comes from the victims, not the action. It comes from the victims, because it comes from the people who had the courage to speak up and speak their truth and say, this is what happened to me.
All I know is I listen to Twitter, I listen to Instagram, and cancel culture don't always come from the victims.
That's true too.
That's absolutely true. But but that's the thing. But that's the thing with trauma though, because we can't say the victims. People come to their own healing and they come to their own revelation as far as what they've been through at their own time. Okay, the people from the outside, is way more fucking easy for them to be like, I'm on the outside, I don't have no personal connection or emotional ties, whatever, so I can say whatever the hell I want to because it ain't affecting me. But
Jarrell, that's what I'm talking about.
But the root though, but I'm talking about the root. The root. I mean, they would never have an opinion.
I'm just saying glad it's not me again this time.
But they would never have an opinion if the person who was the victim finally said something.
Jarrell, we are not talking about the same thing though.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I'm not talking about the victims. What I said was, I don't believe that cancel culture should be the end all and be all or our default response when somebody does something wrong. That's what I said. I'm not talking about the victims. Because I'm not talking about who's causing it. I'm talking about this conflation of, if somebody does something wrong, no matter what it is, that we cancel them. That's a concept. Not a construct of the end result of somebody's trauma. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about conflating these two very different concepts.
Yeah, I think there definitely is like cancel culture in terms of like one little mistake and you're over. That's real.
100%.
But I think there's also like this is about like persistent
habitual nature
issues, right? And I think that's different.
Yes, and that's what I was going to
100%. Yes.
And I think it's also like what do we consider like a punishment? Like there's no like human right where like everyone's entitled to host a talk show, right? Like we're not talking about like throwing her in prison or something. And like ultimately people are buying this image of being like nice and progressive and whatever. And like once you find out that like what's going on behind the scenes doesn't match that scene. Yeah, it doesn't match that. It's like, who wants to buy that?
And that's the part that I'm like,
right.
a lot of people might be that naive to think that's truly her on there. Like, no, you don't get to that level being that nice.
Yeah.
And so
you made somebody mad at some point.
You made somebody mad along the way.
Point.
And it's just like, sometimes maybe it sucks to know that maybe, I've invested so much time. I've watched you, Ellen, all day, every day, and you're not that nice. You're not that person. That's the part where I'm like, okay, y'all, you can't be that naive to a lot of this stuff that's on TV because it's entertainment. Like it's supposed to be this facade of it, you know?
Yeah, we romanticize people. We romanticize their actions. We put them on. We have this Madonna complex where we put people on a pedestal. That
or
says,
Beyonce complex.
Once you've reached a certain kind of level or whatever, that then you cease being human anymore. You are now this caricature that we have now this persona, and that supersedes your humanity. And all I'm saying is we need to have a little bit more balance in terms of how we think about people. And yes, people are going to make mistakes, and those mistakes are going to hurt people. And we need to be a little bit, as humans, we need to be more cautious around our language that we're using with regards to what needs to happen as a result.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's just a great, yeah, and I agree with you doing on that. Like, I just feel like how it's such a gray area because there's just so many factors in there, you know, like how your opinion,
by the way,
I'm not a great person. I'm not, because just like, you know, like how you were talking about, you know, like the aggressor, and I was talking about the victims, you know, like that's part of the gray of being like two sides to every coin, you know, 100%. Like, I completely agree, but I also, like, part of the other theory, though, a lot of this stuff is coming to fruition as well, too, is because she has been talking about going off the air, too. So another, so the other theory is talking about, like, this is a part of the network's way of pushing her out sooner, so then that way she don't also end on her terms. And then they're also talking about already about replacing her with James Corden. Yes. So how we go from you know, from one person like to another blonde hair, blue eyed person, like really,
that's not the only alternative. Like,
right? Like, let's do something better, bigger and better.
But that just showed you that, like, all of this is such an entertainment thing, and it's they don't care that there's an issue because you guys talking about Ellen's the top. She reports to a boss, so why are we taking down the whole network? You know, why are we picking on Ellen? Yes, she's part of it because it's her name on the show. Absolutely agree with that. You need to be accountable for the people below you. But even she's reporting to people. And they're just gonna cancel her show, and those people are still there. So that's the part where I'm
that's usually how it works.
Y'all fighting the wrong battle here. Y'all need to go to old boy that's still chilling with the $1 million yacht and everything like that, because he's just gonna find James Corden to replace Ellen, and life goes on.
Drop him in,
and the same culture.
You see what they did to Steve Harvey. Replace his ass with Kelly Clarkson.
So that's the part where I'm like, sometimes people get so up in arms, and I'm like, you're not fighting the right battle. You're fighting a battle, absolutely, but there's a war that you really need to be concentrating on because the culture's still going to be there nonetheless.
Right.
But
absolutely.
Anyway. Well, you got to see how we really
I think also part of this is just like I think just. Okay, so earlier we were talking about like not having just like one person be the representative. And I think this is just showing like how like disinvested the queer, or like, I don't know, let's say queer people in general, maybe like subsets of that have how she's kind of gone from being like lesbian icon that people were being very invested in because there just wasn't that much there to like, this one white lesbian lady who kind of sucks. Like people, like she's not that. We don't need to protect her at all costs, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think now we're just getting like this strong sentiment of like how much queer people have like kind of divested their energy in this one icon or whatever. Because like, there's other people. We don't need to protect at all costs. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation.
I mean, right, and I agree with it.
But we're almost at the 2-hour mark, so we want to at least
with your socials.
Exactly, give you time to plug your stuff.
Sweet. So you can follow us on Insta, Twitter, and Facebook at The Queer Arabs, and check out our website, thequeerarabs.com. And then I guess our personal Instas, mine, you can follow me at Alia and a violin underscore between each other.
And
we'll tag you, girl.
I'm on Instagram at Nadia in her own world.
Nice. And are there certain days your episodes come out?
So we release every Friday.
Every Friday.
Yeah.
So check it out, community.
Well, this episode will release on Monday, so you'll have our community will have our episode, and then they can follow up with one of your episodes.
God, who knows? It's trippy to think who knows what all is going to happen between now and just like Monday. Like,
right.
It's weird to think about.
We've been like publishing episodes like that we recorded like a week or two ago. And it's like, wow, this feels historical.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, this is an artifact.
This is like ancient history now.
Our grandkids or our grandnieces and nephews are going to be reaching out to us. Tell us about 2020.
We'll
be like, just listen to our podcast.
Right, exactly.
Right.
We don't have.
It's on the internet. It's on the internet.
Let me show you my pics from damn, I just lost it.
And on that note,
it's gonna be like Black Mirror. You're gonna put the contacts in your eye, and you're just gonna have everything there. That's what it's gonna be like.
Yeah,
everything's in the cloud.
That's funny. But,
how will anyone ever retell all of this?
This year, I know I'm gonna have to listen to the podcast
now without a drink.
Oh, yeah, that did happen.
No, several vodka smoothies.
There we go.
Gummy penguins.
And on that note, we're gonna end it right there. So, community,
we love you guys.
Your week, and we'll see you next week.
This was so
much fun.
This was awesome.
Bye,
Bye, y'all.